The banking sector in Nigeria's equities market is witnessing a resurgence as FirstHoldCo and Access Corporation build on Wednesday's gains, which saw the sector advance. Israel Ajimuda, an investment research analyst at Zedcrest Wealth, joins me now to look at the market performance this week. Israel, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. Really a stabilizing Naira, sustained disinflation trend and lower interest rates are just the ideal mix for a stronger industrial goods sector. Where are we right now? And when we are juxtaposing that to the overall performance of other indices, how is the index performing today?
Thank you for having me, David. Good afternoon. Coming from last year, we saw our Forex exposure impacted the financials of the major industrial goods players, majorly for cement players. We saw our Forex impacted their performance negatively. We also saw cost pressures coming from energy supplies, and we saw how most of these players tried to diversify their energy mix to see how they could reduce these cost pressures. Fast forward to the first half of this year, and even to today, we are now seeing significant recoveries. You recall that in Q1, we saw significant performances coming from even WAPCO. We saw that Forex losses significantly declined on the back of stability in the domestic currency. Similarly, cement and the likes of Dangote cement, we saw significant reduction in Forex losses that impacted profitability margins and the bottom line. So for the index, we are seeing the industrial goods for year to date close in the green as of yesterday, about 6.61%. We expect that this would improve as we continue to see strong numbers coming from Q2 and H1's performances.
Yeah. And talking about strong numbers expected now, H1 earnings, we also have the MPC meeting in focus now. Let's talk about how a 25 basis rate cut, that's the ideal number we're having here from different houses at this moment, or a rather hold stance. But take, for example, hold or 25 basis rate cut. How much more do you see this rubbing off of big names? Take, for example, the Dangotes, the Lafarge, Better Glass, and the scenarios around BOA. And when we're also looking at the banking sector as well, we are seeing some interesting news as well. UBA's rights issue, Otedola taking over 40% in FirstHoldCo, and also GT Co shares passing the 100 naira per share mark at this moment. How do you see these moves impact on the stocks?
Yeah, so starting with the old and 25 basis points, the cut is on the table. But very much importantly is that we have to look into the inflation figures for the month of June. It's a mixed one for me. Headline declined 22.22%. But looking at the core components of inflation, looking at food inflation, looking at core inflation, and also looking at month on month, we are seeing it increase for the month of June. That's quite concerning. And for the Monetary Policy Committee, I would expect them to hold policy rates at this moment and look out how data prints out going into the later part of the quarter to now decide on whether a 25 basis points is what makes sense for the economy at this point. In terms of how this policy rate will impact major players in the market, especially for the industrial players, it's going to reduce interest costs, borrowing costs for these major names. The likes of Dangote Cement have been coming to the market to issue commercial papers at very much high levels above what Treasury bills are offering. Of course, with a rate cut on the table and the possibility of a rate cut in the later part of the year, what that means is that companies, whether through bank borrowings or commercial papers, will be able to borrow at a much more convenient rate. And of course, that will impact positively on their bottom line. For the major news around First Bank and also UBA, it's a very good one. It gives room for, it's been an historical issue for First Bank, and that the fact that CBN has come in to broker a deal, it's a good one. We have seen the numbers for First Bank. We have seen it move as of today, rallied yesterday, also rallied today. For UBA, UB has intensified on its recapitalization position. We're seeing them raise capital through right issue for #1 additional share for an existing 13 shares being held by shareholders or investors as of yesterday. So it's a good one. We'll continue to see this impact the market significantly. And of course, a rate cut, which is on the table, but for me, I don't see a rate cut for the next Monetary Policy Committee decision. I feel that they will remain data dependent. They'll try and see how food inflation, especially, how it prints going into the later part of the quarter before taking a decision regarding interest rates. So
there's some alignment there between your take and then Tommy West's take. But wrapping up the conversation at this moment now, let's talk about where is an ideal, a good entry point for buyers at this moment, and looking at how stocks are moving now, which would you recommend? Buy, hold, sell?
I mean, looking at key sectors, the consumer goods is the best out of all key players. Looking at the breweries, looking at majorly the breweries, from champion breweries to international breweries to Nigerian breweries. Also, Cadbury is a big one. I mean, also rallied today. Moving straight to the banking sector, I mean, also a good one. I mean, we expect that interest income will decline, seeing that yields in the market, in the fixed income market, are also declining. So interest income coming from securities will decline. But of course, I expect that the CBN will begin to give a body language that it expects to cut rates in the later part of the year. And like the other presenter earlier mentioned, where we expect that even if they don't cut rates, there should be an adjustment to the asymmetric corridor. Of course, that would then mean that banks should begin to prepare how they would continue, how they would intend to lend to the real sector. You get, so that would improve their revenues going forward. I mean, interest income is gone. We should expect them.
Okay, Israel, we'll have to leave the conversation here. Thank you so much for your time. That was Israel Ajimuda, Investment Research Analyst at Zedcrest Wealth.